at home in a virtual church, eating Good Friday food with your family at home. So maybe you're bored and you'll come watch our show for a minute.
Yes. Okay, so we are live on everywhere. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live in all these different places. So do you want to introduce us, Blake? Do you want to get the show started?
Sure. So this is episode 11, but for those of you on social, this is only the second time we have been live.
Yep, only the second time.
I always feel the need to tell everyone if I'm breathing heavy, that's because I am like 9 months pregnant. So yeah, cut me some slack, everybody. But today we're talking about a really important topic for anybody that is either looking to pivot what they're doing with their own business this year or wants to start a business. A lot of you have been filing for unemployment. I know we have record numbers. It's a good time to think about starting your own business. And you got a lot of that right now, which is time.
And our dogs are saying hello to everybody who's watching.
Yeah. So time to dream, time to think. If you have your own business, as long as you can keep acquiring customers, you will always be in business. That is the hardest part of having your own business.
Yes.
So Jacob and I have both been able to acquire customers. And today we're going to go through 8 different ways that you can acquire customers this year.
I feel like we should properly introduce the show the way that we usually do on the podcast.
Okay. Why don't you do it?
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jacob. This is my wife, Blake. And you are either watching live or tuning into the BYOB podcast. And we're a husband and wife entrepreneurial team for those of you who are watching live. And the whole point of the podcast that we launched and this live show is to basically share everything that we've learned during our entrepreneurial journeys over the last 15 years for me and 5 years or so for Blake. And today's topic that we want to look at are 8 ways to acquire a new customer in 2020. And these are all things that Blake and I have had to do during the course of our businesses to be able to close deals, to be able to get customers. So we're going to share the 8 things that we have done, and hopefully you will find these useful and things that you can start doing as well. And if you have any questions or comments for those of you who are watching live, please make sure to leave a comment either on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you are, and we'll see those pop up in the chat and we'll be able to answer those. So the first way that we are going to talk about that you can acquire a new customer in 2020 is to find third parties where your customers go. And so I'll give you a quick example, and then Blake will chime in and share her thoughts on this too. But Blake and I, for example, are speakers. And so as a speaker, you have a couple different routes that you can take.
That's one of our jobs.
Yeah,
we have a few jobs.
One of the many things that we do.
Sell.
And so as a speaker, for example, you can reach out to organizations directly and, have them try to book you as a speaker. Or you can realize that a lot of organizations, when they book speakers, they go through speaker bureaus. So this is a third party, I don't want to call it a marketplace, but it's a third party place where your customers will go to try to find you. So that is an example when we say find third parties where your customers go, speaker bureaus. So Blake, anything you want to?
Yeah, some people, they don't want to sell themselves, which I understand. Like I've noticed a few people will put in their LinkedIn, like represented by such and such agency. The only bummer about third parties is they will take a cut of your business. So direct to consumer,
or they'll mark you up.
Yeah. So direct to consumer, it's hot in retail, and it also kind of makes sense with so many new business models, which it's like Trader Joe's. You just cut out the middleman, unless you are the middleman and that is your business. And sorry.
Yeah.
But I actually, so Jacob and I sell a lot of different things. Speaking is the thing that makes the most money the fastest. We are not doing a lot of speaking right now because we are knee deep in this mud of the coronavirus, but I was pregnant anyway and wasn't expecting to. Jacob has lost a lot of business, but we can still,
unfortunately,
this stuff will end. It will end and business will go on. It won't be the same, but maybe there'll be more virtual speaking opportunities. But anyway, the point is, for my own journey, I did not use a speaker bureau until maybe like 4 years into having my speaking business. All of my speaking opportunities came through content or relationships I had. But with the content section, I'm probably going to talk a lot because for
Yes.
me, that has been the number one way that I've acquired customers.
Yeah. But third party, so again, in our example, that might be something like a speaker bureau. In your example, it might be something different. So, for example, maybe you're not a speaker, but you are you're an author looking to sell your book. There are a lot of third-party places where you can go, where those different sites will help market your book to customers, or they'll distribute your book to customers for a discount. Or maybe you are a graphic designer. And so there are a lot of third-party platforms out there that you can go to showcase your work, where customers usually go to find a graphic designer. So I think understanding where your customers go, where those third-party places are, is very, very useful for you, regardless of what you're doing.
And also, let me say, also when they're in the mood to buy, like if you find out your prospects are frequenting the golf club, like you don't want to show up at the golf club pretending to golf and be like, hey guys, like this is a really ridiculous, like Larry David type of example. But you also want to make sure that when you approach these customers, if it's through a third party, you're doing so in a thoughtful manner.
Well, if you go through a third party, you're not actually approaching them.
Right. But even if you're there, like there are times when I've been marketed products, like even now with everything with coronavirus, especially in the beginning, I would notice on major media publications, like some big software companies would still be hardcore advertising their products. And it just seemed lack of
a little
taste.
Obnoxious, yeah.
And so you have to be thoughtful in real time about how you're going to be perceived. Even if you're not even present, you don't want to leave a bad taste in people's mouth because you're not being thoughtful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other third-party marketplaces, not marketplaces, but third-party places where somebody would go to. For speakers, a speaker bureau. For a designer, there's like design sites.
Even Amazon is the biggest.
Yeah,
third-party.
I mean, there used to be like, I remember
world.
99 Designs was a platform. I actually found my graphic designer who I've been working with for 6 years, Alan, who we work with. I think I found Alan through 99 Designs, which those of you who are not familiar with it, and I don't know if it's still around or not. I used this many years ago, but it's a third-party platform where you go to and you basically are able to find designers there. You put up the work that you need done, and different designers kind of compete for trying to get your business. And that's actually how I've found my designer who I've been working with for 6-7 years. Blake and I both work with him. So understand where those third-party places are for whatever industry you're in, for whatever it is that you're trying to do. So another way that you can acquire a new customer in 2020, and this is something that we can probably talk a lot about, is to speak at related industry events. Regardless of the industry that you're in, I'm willing to bet that there is a conference for it. I've spoken for dentists, for lawyers, for IT people, for HR people. You've spoken for all sorts of interesting audiences and groups too.
The first one I did was the Fancy Food Show.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to work with food companies. But I think people are probably also watching live. They're in the midst of this pandemic where everyone's home. Like there's no events.
Well, yeah, not now, but in general, I mean, it's good to find
normal times.
Yeah, I mean,
you might have to do some free speaking.
Yeah, in a couple of months when this is over, I'm assuming that a lot of people will be going back to events and speaking. So find the industry events that are out there that are related to your business. Again, you can find events for pretty much anything. I don't care how niche it is, whether it's quilting. I know there's quilting conferences. There's conferences for chiropractors, literally any audience that's out there. So find whatever those conferences are. You can apply to speak there. That's the best thing that you can do. Usually all these places have an open call for submissions.
You have to be, I think, we're getting super into speaking though. Do you think?
Well, it's the second bullet on here. So.
I think first, you need to be a good speaker. Like you don't want to just go, okay, now I'm going to start speaking at events. Like I think you have to do a little bit of work on yourself first. And for me, I started with Toastmasters. And then from there, I started doing free events. I was involved with a nonprofit called SOCAP, Society of Consumer Affairs Professionals. And I would just do little events and very, very small events to get started. But you have to start somewhere. And then eventually, if you are a compelling speaker and you get good, like speaking is one of the best opportunities because you have a captive audience that are literally stuck.
Yeah, and we'll do a whole separate episode specifically on speaking as well, because we probably have lots that we can share on that. But try to speak at industry events if you can. As Blake mentioned, if you're a little scared of speaking, you can do something like Toastmasters, do something to kind of build up some confidence. But we'll do a whole separate episode on that. And if you can't even speak at those events, if you're a little worried about speaking there, attend them. Go network there, meet people there. It's the perfect target audience for your customers, for your prospects. Blake and I both spoke at many, many, many events for free when we first started off. I did that for several years, and it proved to be fruitful. You get a couple clients here and there, and eventually you have enough to be able to cover your expenses and sustain your business. So whenever you can, speak at industry-related events. It's very easy to just Google chiropractor conferences or quilting conferences and events, and you'll find them and apply to speak there. I think it's very essential. Number 3 on our list is advertising on related channels. And I had an example in here. As soon as I put it in there, Blake's like, "Oh God, don't talk about my dad." So advertising in related channels is useful. So Blake's dad, can I say anything about your dad? I won't say his name.
I told you could.
Okay. So Blake's dad, for example, is a psychotherapist.
He's a psychiatrist.
He's a psychiatrist.
They
Sorry.
don't like when you.
Oh yeah, I know. You're supposed to mix them. So Blake's dad's what is it called?
Psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist.
That's how mentally healthy my husband is. He's like, what?
Yeah, I've never heard.
What is that? It's a doctor that treats your brain.
JJ joined.
Oh, poor guy. He must be really freaking bored.
JJ's
stuck at home.
my chess coach. Yeah, he's quarantined in St. Louis. Hi, JJ. So Blake's dad is a psychiatrist, and he advertises, for example, in Psychology Today. And every time we talk to him on the phone, he's always bragging about, I'm getting new customers and new prospects from this relevant advertising. So can
I tell you what he also did?
Yes, tell me what your dad also did.
My dad's 70, keep in mind. He's a little bit like Larry David, but less rich. And he told me he read my book on customer experience, and he loves to tell me how he figured out Google reviews, that his Google reviews, he fixed them, whatever that means. He started asking for them, and that absolutely changed his business once he started getting better reviews and kind of managing his online presence. So for my dad, who's 70, who
my mom does that with Yelp too.
Yeah, so it's these little things. It's good to Google yourself, honestly, if you're a small business owner. I mean, Jacob and I don't know. We're the other way.
Where are you going with this?
We're overly involved in the marketing, but a lot of people, they just want to work on their businesses. They don't want to think about customer acquisition, marketing, online reputation, but it's really important.
It is, yeah. So advertise on related channels. Find out what your customers or your prospects are reading and advertise there. I mean, I think it's a very, very simple technique to use. And the other thing that we can probably talk about here is even using advertising through social media. I don't think I had this as a separate thing. So yes, we can talk about that under this point. With advertising on things like Facebook, for example, you can very much create targeted ads for your group. People who read a specific magazine, people who are interested in certain things.
Has it worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I just started getting more aggressive with Facebook ads recently, and we've gotten a couple hundred people into our email list so far.
Can I tell you about Facebook for myself?
Yes.
I hate Facebook. I have never had luck with business on Facebook. I love LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. But you don't advertise on LinkedIn. I don't know. I do all content.
Yeah. You don't do any advertising.
I actually do, no advertising.
Yeah, you do zero advertising.
And I built a big business for myself, big for me, without advertising. I think it's okay to not do Facebook. If you don't understand it, if you aren't really sure, it's okay to just not do it. You don't need to be on there just because everyone is, Facebook marketing. And, like some people I've noticed are really good at it. I'm not one of those people. I just want to always present the counter view to my husband, who tells you, go do Facebook ads. It's also okay not to do them. And I've built a good business running from Facebook for the hills, since they started saying, basically, unless you spend a lot of money with us and you understand how this stuff works, like, you're not going to have much luck for the most part, unless you have an online community.
Yeah, you don't have to use Facebook ads. So I actually have somebody who I work with, who I recently hired, who's helping me understand Facebook ads, because there's kind of a lot going on in there. But if you do want to target a relevant group, if you want to target a relevant group, Facebook is I think it's something worthy for you to try, because like I said, you can drill down by industry, by geographic location, by income level, by employer. You can drill down by pretty much everything. So if you're thinking of advertising, find out the relevant places that your customers are reading. Again, whether it's something like Psychology Today if you're a therapist, whether it's a chiropractor magazine if you're a chiropractor, but also consider using some tailored and customized ads through various social channels like Facebook ads.
And you can hire people on Upwork to help you with this.
Yeah.
I suck at all this, you guys.
I'm also terrible at it. I've tried to do Facebook ads myself and it's tough. So that's why I finally gave up and decided to.
And be careful, because I've noticed on Upwork, some people, they are so expensive. It's just like alarming. They charge for me, a Facebook person, it's like $150 an hour. I don't know. If you're just starting out, I think that's a lot.
Well, I'm not paying $150 an hour.
But I see the rates that these folks charge. If that's you, good for you. And you're really good at Facebook, good for you. But I think just beware.
We should probably do a whole episode on where to find people as well.
Yeah. Social media. Some people, if you don't understand it, they might swindle you and be like, I'm going to change your life with social media advertising.
Well,
they're probably not going to. So just don't spend tons of money.
First thing that I would recommend then, if you're interested in doing any kind of Facebook ads, a lot of these tools and platforms have free courses that you can take. Like Facebook has a really... That's just obnoxious.
I'm pregnant.
That's just
Leave me alone.
Facebook has a very useful... series of free courses that you can take just to learn a little bit about Facebook ads, some kind of high level stuff. So if you want to dabble in it, you can just go Google Facebook ads tutorial and you'll find it and give it a shot. $5, $10, see what happens, play around with it. And if your business starts generating revenue, then you can kind of bring somebody in. But I think the whole point of all this is find where your customers are and try to advertise there, whether it's
your mom's Hi, Ella.
Yeah. Hi, Mom.
Your mom's watching us.
How do you know? Where does it say
I can see her face.
Oh, yeah. There she is. Well, she liked it. I don't know if she's actually watching. Right. So the next point we have on here, and this is probably the one that Blake and I have leveraged the most and that has been most effective for us, and that is content marketing, aka using social media to build our business and to build our brands. I think, what would you say, 80, 90, 100% of how we've been able to build our business has been from that category?
Content is really important, and her dog just went off to
I know, she's
probably
wandering.
Urinate on the carpet somewhere that my husband's going to be cursing in Russian later, cleaning it up. I'm thinking about a lot of you that might not have a digital business. You might not be a speaker. Content, that might not be something you can really do a lot of, but at a basic level, you should have a good website. If you have blogs on there, I remember I saw a speaker, I think his name was Marcus Sheridan, and he talked about, when I saw him speak, he talked about how, and he wrote a book about, in 2008, he had a pool company, pool cleaning, and all he did, his company was almost bankrupt, and all he did was write a really good blog about something people were looking for, which is, I think, how to clean your pool yourself. Something really good how-to, and his business, it completely changed his business just from one or two how-to blogs. And I actually took that advice. And then for myself, I wrote a blog on my own website, 10 tips on how to be a keynote speaker. And that is to this day, my most trafficked, the way a lot of people find me and my website. So if you provide a service to people through content, if you can teach them something they don't know, figure out what are people searching for online and address that need. That's a great way to generate business for yourself. If you're someone, on LinkedIn, I see all these people who they're very much, I don't know what the word is, flaunting their feathers, something with the feathers. I don't know.
I don't know where you're going. Don't look at me.
No, it's like
I'm
a
not bailing,
peacock,
I'm not bailing you out of this one.
They want to like, anyway, puff up. That's the word. And they call themselves lions, and they're like very like, I can't stand, I'm going to offend people, but I can't stand this. Like, the way to get customers through content, through basically anything, is be of service. And that means think about what do people need and go and provide that to them, rather than making your content more about, look at me, I'm so great, I'm so cool, here's all my titles and my accomplishments. Like, it reminds me of relationships, how they say no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And you're not caring right now. Can you care more?
I'm moving the microphone closer.
So if you can be of service, and you can do that through content. For me, that's 5 years. That's my entire business. I've probably written
Why don't you share what you've done?
600 Forbes articles.
What have you done around content marketing? So people listening who are thinking of using content for themselves, what have you done that's been effective?
So 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to start writing a Forbes column, and Jacob had one.
Okay, well, before Forbes, because not everybody's going to be able to get on Forbes.
I have been blogging and doing content for 12 years. My content strategy is always the same. It's always be thoughtful. It's always about listening, promoting other people, finding interesting topics. And that's been my entire business. I was laid off from a Fortune 100 company 5 years ago, and I had a column on Forbes, which they did not pay, but that allowed me to continue to have a voice. And I took it really seriously. And Jacob stopped writing for Forbes. I kept going, and I'm a loyal contributor to Forbes. They trust me. They've given me special privileges. They started paying me.
Besides Forbes.
Yeah, it's really like you can do I also have my own blog. I have my own podcast. I started doing YouTube videos. And I think for a lot of people watching and listening, one of the biggest hurdles is going to be when you do content, you become vulnerable. You expose yourself to criticism. People can write mean comments. I think that's a really big hurdle. But if you're providing value, you'll build a community. And I actually really love the Seth Godin interview you did, where he talked about don't try and be famous. Don't try and be everything to everyone.
You listened to my interview with Seth Godin?
Build a small...
I feel very touched. I don't
remember. He said this a few times. I don't remember if it was your interview with him or where I heard it, but he really tells people, this whole thing about like influencers and being famous, like don't try to do that. Create a small tribe by providing value to a small community and grow it that way.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the best advice anyone could give you.
Yeah. Content marketing for me has also been probably the number one way that I have been able to grow my business over the last 15 years. And content marketing for me, the main channels I use: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Okay, so those are the main channels that I use for everything. And the content marketing for me, and even for Blake, comes across in many different forms, whether it's podcasts, whether it's image quotes, whether it is writing status updates, whether it is creating infographics, whether it is doing, videos, like chopping up videos and using those. But a lot of the people who have found my content, who have found me, and who've even found Blake, have found us as a result of content marketing.
I have a question from Prash.
Yes, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So a lot of the people who have found us through content marketing. The people, I got a comment here in somebody from Brazil. So hello. So a lot of the people who found Blake and I, it's been through content marketing, because we hone in on our message and we share it across all the different channels that we have, not in a spammy way, but in a way to kind of add value. We make the content different, and we've been doing this for many, many years.
Can I share something?
Yeah.
By my brother's wedding speech to us.
Yes.
where he said I don't even remember what exactly what he said is he was making fun of me as older brothers do in a wedding speech, and he's like a true Landau, Blake, that's my maiden name. Blake will just take something and she'll focus on it and she'll focus on it.
Morgan is much
on it.
Morgan is much better than Landau.
And yeah, because now we're named after a bank.
I wonder if we could.
Sorry, dad-in-law.
Sorry, not sorry.
Anyway, the whole thing is like, yeah, like some days my eyes are bleeding from talking about customer experience. And I laugh with Jacob. Like if I hear the word customer in like a cartoon or radio interview, I'm like, I kind of flinch. I'm like, customers. That's how you have to be crazy, like obsessing for SEO and building a brand for yourself. We have some questions, including.
Oh, wait, let's finish this point first.
Okay.
And Blake will know, I probably annoy her with this all the time. I'm constantly thinking of new types of content to create, to distribute. So people can't see behind us, but we have like 2 different size whiteboards that are back here because we create like different educational content where, I write things down on a whiteboard. We use all sorts of different things. I've created animated videos, courses. So part of content marketing means constantly thinking of what? Are you laughing because there's like a loud
trash day?
It's funny because we're on like the 3rd floor and you can still hear it. Like it's
so
right
loud.
It's obnoxious. Yeah. Oh, well, what are you going to do? So part of content marketing is also making sure that you're constantly thinking of new ways to deliver your content across various channels. So different types of video. Like I'm always looking at YouTube on YouTube, for example, of people who create videos in interesting ways. Do they use a white background? Do they have, text going on the bottom? Like I'm constantly searching for that stuff to figure out what works and what doesn't. And that's part of what content marketing is all about. You constantly have to test and iterate and experiment what needs editing, what doesn't, what content does well, what doesn't. But ultimately for Blake and I, that has been 95% of what has grown our businesses. And I think we do a pretty good job of content marketing. And maybe in a separate episode, we can kind of share our like content marketing blueprint and how we like what goes out every week and how we do it.
We're different too.
Yeah.
Like Jacob is really happy just to like flip on his camera and do LinkedIn Live. And our daughter's awake.
No.
This podcast might get shrunk.
No, she'll be fine.
But I don't like being on camera unless I feel camera ready. Like I don't just like flip on my phone and like be like, hey guys, on LinkedIn. I'm more thoughtful and I want my makeup done, to be frank, before I like let the world in. So
what you see from Blake right now took her like 45 to 60 minutes.
I washed my hair. I'm also 9 months pregnant, so like
I've got
the cards stacked against me.
I threw on a blue shirt and came over here.
That's
what you guys are saying. Okay, so let's get on to the next point. This one was content marketing. So content marketing is a very, very useful strategy to use. Again, the main channels for Blake and I have talked about, there might be a different channel for you to use. We don't use like TikTok or WhatsApp or
I've heard TikTok is good though.
Yeah, I mean, but we personally don't use those things.
We don't rush to these things because our audiences are business people. They're not on TikTok really.
Yep. So create compelling content. Content marketing is a very useful tool. Next is number 5 on our list is create products and have a newsletter to capture leads. So another very, very effective way that you can build and grow a customer list and eventually acquire customers is you give stuff for free. I do this a lot. Whether it is an assessment that you take, if you want an example you can go to futureleadersurvey.com and you can see exactly what that looks like. So whether I am creating an assessment that I want people to take to see if they're ready to be a future ready leader, whether it is a PDF on leadership hacks that I want people to download, I'm constantly creating free content out there. I did an employee experience training series. All of these things are free pieces of content where I collect people's email address in exchange for them getting something. So that is a very, very useful tool and strategy to use.
Please do not collect email addresses through LinkedIn where people haven't given you permission and you just grab them and spam them. We need to have a podcast about good behavior with email. do not take lists that do not belong to you or get emails in weird ways and then just add them without people's permission.
Yes.
I get this every day, like 10 times a day, and it's just such a turnoff.
It is.
Absolutely would never buy anything from someone.
It
who
is
added
annoying.
Me.
But create something for free. You can do something. I've experimented with doing some very intense things and very simple things. And I'll give you an example. For my new book that came out, The Future Leader, I did a couple different things. I created an assessment that people can take where you go to a URL, you answer some questions, you get a score. I did a PDF that people can download, which gives you leadership hacks from top CEOs. And I did a very intense 31-day video series where you can sign up and every day you get a video delivered to your inbox. It's 3 to 5 minutes long where I share a leadership hack from a CEO. And one of the things that we found interesting is that the ones that converted the best were things like the survey and the leadership hacks, whereas the video series had the lowest conversion rate, but it's what people found the most value from. So in other words, people who signed up for that got a ton of value out of it. They would send me lots of emails, but that's for like a very, very targeted, very, very interested group who I think is more likely to buy.
Was it valuable for you?
Yeah.
That's not clear.
It is very valuable. Yeah. I mean, I got thousands of people who've signed up for these things collectively.
Mel Robbins does this a lot.
Yeah. She's the one who I got the idea from because she had her 31 coaching and mentoring session. So the whole point of this is to show
overwhelming for people though.
Well, yeah. So that's the whole point is you create different types of products depending on the audience.
And start small.
Yeah.
I think you need to do all these things. I've actually never done this 31 day. Nothing.
No, but
nothing
have you
for 31
well, I've never done 31 days either. This was the first time I've tried it. So you can experiment with different things that you want to do, whether it's a simple PDF, whether it's a free training series, whether it's 31 videos, a free course. But these types of things,
what I did?
Yes, these types of things I think are very useful though. But yes, share what you did.
My email list. Are you going to talk to our daughter?
Yes.
He's also like, God, I don't want to listen to my wife anymore. Just get her. I can talk to you guys by myself. So I don't have a huge email list, but for me, it's very targeted. When I started, it was with a completely clean slate. I did not take any lists that I had for prior businesses. I didn't grab anyone's email that I found on LinkedIn. It was a pure clean slate. And every time I would publish a blog, an article, a podcast, any piece of content at the bottom in my signature, it would say, Blake is an author, is a speaker, blah, blah, blah. For more information, you can sign up for her weekly newsletter and just a link to the MailChimp newsletter sign up. I now have about 6,000 people on my newsletter. It's not a ton, but those people are extremely targeted to me. And so while my numbers aren't crazy, because I took my time, and honestly, most of the emails came from either what Jacob's talking about, like an ebook, a white paper. A lot of it is from Forbes. At the bottom, what they let you do is one link in your signature. So you can imagine over 6 years how long it took me to generate these 6,000 newsletter emails. But even though it's a small number, it's a good number. It's targeted to the topic that I cover. And so that's how I always I recommend start small and don't be discouraged by small numbers, because you might only have 200 people that want to hear from you, but those 200 people could be exactly the sweet spot for your business. Quality
over quantity. And newsletters are amazing. I don't know why more people don't have newsletters. I think everybody, if you're an entrepreneur going off on your own, you should have a newsletter because it's people who are opting in to hear content from you. And with the Stephen BYOB podcast, we started a brand new newsletter. We only have like 100 people on there so far, or maybe a little more. And it's brand new. So we're trying to grow that list completely from scratch.
We're also starting our own business right now.
Yes, exactly. So we're sort of starting a brand new business and are kind of following our own advice from some of the previous things that we've done. So create a product, something simple, something free that you can give out, that you put on your site. Do a simple PDF, do like 5 tools I use to be productive, if that's relevant for you, but just anything that gives people value is the way to think of the product, and have a newsletter, because this is a very targeted way for you to reach out to people.
And also, I think we haven't talked about like tone and communication
Well,
style.
that's probably.
You do have to be someone that people like and want to hear from. But we'll talk about that's a good topic for another day.
Yeah. The next one that we have on here is leverage your existing network. Unfortunately, when I went off on my own around 15 years ago, I had no network to leverage. So
well, you were like 10 years old.
Yeah, I was very young. So that sucked for me. I had to basically solely rely on mainly content marketing and speaking at events for free to be able to build anything. But a lot of people who go off on their own, many of them have some sort of connections or relationships from past jobs that they've had, family members who are, maybe connected with somebody. So leverage your existing network as much as you can when you go off on your own. I don't know. Did you leverage your network at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're better to talk about this than me because I had no network to leverage. So what did you do?
Well, so I always tell people like, pay attention to what keeps coming back to you. Like for me, customer service and customer experience kept coming back to me. It just kept following me around. I kept trying to get away from it. I was like, I don't like this topic. This is not sexy. Customer service, like nobody cares about that. But it kept coming back to me. And I eventually acquired so many skills that I got a really good paying job at a Fortune 100 company. And I didn't really want to work in service, but I wanted to work for this great brand. And eventually got laid off, but I had while having a full-time job, I had still continued my Forbes column and all of my social networking that I do online. And so I had a person that already asked me for a webinar. And so I went back
while
and
you were
I said,
employed.
Yeah. And so when I got laid off, don't you dare say the name.
I almost accidentally said it.
And they're going to chase me for the severance they gave me.
I almost accidentally said it. I didn't. I stopped myself.
They probably no one's listening anyway from that company.
You never know.
So the first thing I did was contact that person and say, hey, I'm available to do a webinar. I think the hardest thing was to say it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. I think that was very uncomfortable for me in the beginning. And we need to do a lot more podcasts, especially for women, on asking
How to ask
for money.
For money, yeah.
And pricing and all that. But I don't know. Pregnancy brain. What
we were talking about how you leveraged your existing network.
I've always collected people online. I've been using LinkedIn since 2007. I've always treated the internet like a business. I never put I did put extremely personal things online, knowing I would be okay if anyone I knew read it or saw it. A lot of people I see don't treat the internet that it's your virtual business card, that this is what people see. And would you be comfortable having your customers see whatever you put online? Your boss, partners. But at a very young age, I think I realized the power of connections, of relationships. And I started building an online persona for myself in 2007. And so that's why, like, the Fortune 100 job that I got, they never even met me in person. And I said to the boss, like, when I met her, like, how can you just hire me never having met me? And she's like, no, I saw your stuff online. Like, I knew you weren't a weirdo.
Well, that's reassuring.
It is so important to be mindful about what you do online.
So do you have any stories of how you leverage your network to get a customer?
Well, I told you my first customer was through my online brand. In the beginning, though, I realized I didn't have any customers, and I started using LinkedIn and using Excel, Google Sheets to start targeting. For me, my target audience are often chief marketing officers of software companies. So I started targeting them. To be frank, this was 5 years ago, and I don't remember how much money I generated from that, but I think it gave me enough to get going.
Yeah.
And a few months after I had my daughter, I got my first keynote speech. And I think that was how I did it.
I think for me, one of the first customers I got, at least in the social media space, probably 12 years ago, was from going to these tweet ups, which were basically meetups that were, people would send out tweets like, hey, we're hosting a meetup.
No one would do this now.
Yeah, nobody would do this now. But back then it was like the cool thing to do. And I remember the first couple of customers I got they were from people who I met at those tweet ups. So by going to all these different networking events and meeting people and saying hi, I would build relationships and, traditional, right? What do you do? Oh, I do this. Oh, cool. We're looking for somebody. And, I would get customers like that. So leverage your existing network.
Oh, I do have a story like that.
Yes. Who?
I joined SOCAP, the Society of Consumer Affairs Professionals. I joined the board of these 9 nonprofits. I also joined the National Association of Women Business Owners, NAWBO. And through SOCAP, I think I did get a few projects that were very small. But through NAWBO, I remember I did a trade with, do you remember when I would trade like social media for, like she did, like my first headshots, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Was a trade. I also did a trade with a coach when I thought I wanted to be a coach. And so, I mean, in the beginning, you just do what you can with your network to like get off the ground. You got to be willing to get your hands dirty. But I did a lot of networking with nonprofits, joining boards. I used to be president of Toastmasters in New York.
Yeah, you got to get out there.
Myself to be a better speaker.
Yeah, all these things are required.
And you know what? If it's uncomfortable for you, having a role
doesn't matter. You got to do it anyway.
I'm not talking to you because nothing's uncomfortable for you.
A lot of this stuff's uncomfortable, but you got to do it anyway. Nobody cares if you're.
Yeah, Jacob wasn't always this confident. I can tell you that.
It's not confident.
But I'm telling them something helpful.
Right,
sometimes, if you are uncomfortable networking, having a role is really helpful. Like being an officer at a nonprofit, volunteering your time at a place where your customers frequent, and having a role, being of service, that is much more comfortable. Even for me as an introvert. Like I often host, I'm a connector. So I'll host like mom meetups at my house, or now I'm doing a Zoom mom meetup. I like being the community manager. It's comfortable for me. It gives me something to do. It's helpful. So I think having a role can actually be really helpful for people who are introverted like me and
I think that's good advice.
Don't love parties.
That is good advice. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This one, leverage your existing network, because, when you start off, your network is going to be, wasn't there a book or a movie called Your Network is Your Net Worth?
Yeah.
I don't remember who wrote that, or
I can look at it.
I'm very curious who wrote that book, but leverage your network again.
Porter Gale.
Porter Gale. Oh yeah. We know. She used to work at Virgin.
I think
Airlines
she knows people I know, but I don't know her personally.
Yeah. So I think it's a title that reflects sort of what we're talking about. Your network is going to matter a lot, and leverage your network. Go to these different events, associations, whatever you can do. I think that's going to be essential. We just have 2 more points that we want to look at. Number 7 is around thought leadership. So one of the most effective ways that you can get customers is to build thought leadership. And this could be all sorts of things. So for Blake and I, for example, writing a book is a great way to build thought leadership. So you create some sort of valuable content, something that gets you recognized or visible. So in our space, as a speaker, writing a book is a wonderful piece of thought leadership.
It is really hard, though.
It is hard. If you're a designer, maybe it's creating a bunch of logos, or maybe you did a commercial. I mean, whatever it is, you need something that has that thought leadership piece for yourself. I think in the creative space, don't they do they do show reels, they do different types of media kits of stuff that they've done. So whatever space you're in, you need to have that kind of, I don't know if you can call it pillar content, but something that gives you that thought leadership and that credibility. So what content do you have that gives you the thought leadership or credibility? Is it a book? Is it a speaking reel? Is it a series of clips from commercials that you produced? If you are in music, maybe it's a compilation of different tracks that you've done. But whatever it is,
a restaurant, maybe you invite some Yelp reviewers to come in.
Yeah.
What are they called?
Well, in that case, it would probably be your Yelp reviews, your restaurant reviews would be your thought leadership.
But getting the people have a lot of followings. I forgot what they're called.
Influencers.
Foodies. Yeah.
So again, depending on what industry you're in, you need to figure out like what is that content that is relevant for your industry, and make sure that you have that kind of thought leadership content. Blake has talked about numerous times how she contributes to Forbes. That is a tremendous piece of thought leadership. So getting featured in media outlets.
Even LinkedIn, like I see LinkedIn articles going viral, like way better viewership than you would get on like even any.
Yeah, maybe you have a very
magazine.
popular LinkedIn article that you've written that you use as kind of your feature. I've certainly done that. And, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can see some of the featured posts on there. But you need to have, I think, that thought leadership piece or content in there.
Thought leadership?
If there's anything you want to add.
Yeah. I mean, I built my whole business on thought leadership, most of which was stuff I did for free. I think you have to be interested in what you're doing. If you're not interested, maybe hire someone, because it's hard to fake good content. Good content comes from knowing pain points, understanding challenges, having a voice, saying something no one else is saying. And I mean, I'm actually interested in what I do, and that's how I've been able to create so much content over the years. So I think keep it interesting for yourself. And if you keep it interesting and you find it interesting and you're generally curious, you'll produce great content.
Yep.
And a big thing about content is also getting people who are influencers to be interested, to share it. So some of my best performing content has been where I interviewed people who work for big brands or people who are interesting, and they share it too. Yep. So it's not just about the content, it's also about the shareability factor and who's sharing it and who you mention in it.
So that is thought leadership. And the next one, and the last one that we wanted to look at, is developing support, such as getting endorsements and testimonials. So speaking from our experience, one of the things that is incredibly useful and valuable when a client wants to book us, when a client, for example, wants to book us for a speaking gig, is seeing that we have endorsements from other organizations, from other companies that we've spoken at, and we get endorsements from them. So having that, I think, is really, really important. Make sure you have that kind of support that backs up your content. So if you've spoken at a lot of conferences and events, do you have those testimonials and endorsements? When you pick up a book, for example, you look at the back of the book to see who endorsed it. That is very, very important for you as an entrepreneur.
And being willing to ask. It's hard to ask sometimes.
Yes, and it is hard to ask for that. It's
embarrassing sometimes.
And I ask for them after every event that I give. Sometimes they say no.
You have no shame, though.
Well, sometimes they say no just because it violates their policies or they're not allowed to use their name. I remember I gave a talk for one of the world's largest oil and gas companies, and it was the not the CEO, but the second one down from there. And he's like, "Oh, we all agreed this was the best leadership talk we've ever heard." And I remember I told you that. And I said, "Great, would you be able to give me a quote?" And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't," which was very upsetting to me because it was a great brand. He was a very top executive, but their policy is that they're not allowed to endorse. So I have gotten far more no's than yeses for a variety of reasons: legal, politics, can't use a name, it just doesn't happen. But I still ask whenever an event goes well.
You know what? Sometimes people want you to scratch their back too. Like I remember one of the authors who endorsed my first book, he had a book about Amazon, and he said, if you buy my book and give me a book review on Amazon, like I'll give you a quote for your book. And I did it. I mean, maybe some people might be turned off and be like, that's skeezy. Yeah. I'm shameless. I'm like, I'm building a business. I'm willing to do that. That seems fair to me.
Yeah. Whatever you got to do, whatever you got to do. But get those endorsements. The example of restaurant, in a restaurant, it's Yelp. For a speaker, it's testimonials. For a book, it's book reviews. Whatever it is, you need to have that kind of the support and testimonial to back up, to give you some legitimacy, some credibility, so that when you go out to other people, they can see that you have that. one of the big questions, for example, everybody got me when I asked me when I wrote my new book, The Future Leader, is how did you get 140 CEOs? And you start with 2. And once these senior leaders see that you have somebody else, it becomes much easier to get other people. And the same thing is true for regardless of the business that you're in. If I reach out to the CEO of a big company and say, hey, I want to interview you for my book, the first question they always ask is, who else did you interview? Who are some of the other CEOs that you've talked to? And if I have nobody, then chances are they're going to say no.
And that's transferable for other businesses.
It is.
If you want to do business with someone, they might say, well, who else are you doing business with?
That's a very common question they ask. Do you have an endorsement? Do you have a reference?
You might need to do some work for free to get those initial customers,
Yeah.
which a lot of software companies do.
And, that's when I did a lot of speaking for free. Those were some of the first endorsements and testimonials that I got that I was then able to use to kind of get paid speaking gigs eventually. So regardless of the business or the industry that you're in, start collecting those endorsements. You can never have too many endorsements. You can never have too much support or too many people who are backing you.
Let's answer questions now.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are, I guess we'll do the recap after. So if you have any questions, those of you who are watching live, please feel free to ask your question either on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are.
Prash Chandra Mohan wants to know, do you agree that everyone's needs are different with social media marketing? Like he says he has some friends who are in mom groups on Facebook. They're not on LinkedIn. Would it make sense for them to sell on Facebook? And then he has another part of that. My response is, yeah, there are a lot of mom groups on Facebook. I think you just have to be more careful because it depends what you're selling. I think you always just need to be cognizant and considerate of why those people are there. And if you do that and you're considerate of every channel, that every channel is different. Who am I targeting? Is it rude or am I adding value? You'll be okay.
And for me, so first, I totally agree that it is different regardless. Different channels are different. So for example, I find that when I post a image quote or a video, that does really well on something like LinkedIn. Sometimes if I post a long infographic or some sort of a, hey, I have a new course, come sign up, those types of promotional posts don't do well. So I try to avoid them. But regardless of the social channel that I'm using, I always try to get people off of that social channel and into my channel, which is my newsletter. So I don't actually sell directly through social channels. Like I'm not going to go, for example, in Parash's case, like I wouldn't go into mom groups and say, hey, I have this product for you to buy. Maybe what I would do is I would say, hey, I know a lot of people here are considering which product to buy. We created a free guide for you that will help you figure out what the best solution is. And so my favorite approach is to get people off of the social channel into your system so that you can try to get them valuable content like that. I do this all the time with training series or lead magnets where I get them to download it and then I keep adding them value. And I say, here's a video on like trends shaping the future of work. Here are like 5 challenges you need to know about. And then after I get the series of this valuable content, then I finally say, if you want more stuff like this, hey, by the way, there's a course like this that you can buy. So that's how I would approach it. I have found that selling directly on social channels isn't that effective. Instead, try to add value whenever you can, get them off of the social channel and get them into your list, into your system so that you can keep providing valuable content for them there. And then eventually, hopefully you can make the sale. But that's just to give you an example. That's one of the other challenges, for example, for authors, right? I mean, if you have a book published with HarperCollins or Wiley or whoever, whenever somebody buys a book from Amazon, you actually have no idea who bought the book. You don't get their name, you don't get their email, you know nothing about them. This is why some people have tried to sell the books themselves. Like they create their own landing pages and, people buy it through their landing page and then they go buy it through Amazon so that you can at least get some information about somebody. So that's how I would approach that.
Yeah, I like that you should add value, be a trusted resource in the community. People will start talking about you. Let's say it's Jacob. Let's say Jacob's in a dad group on Facebook. Like, oh, that Jacob.
Which, by the way, I would never be in a dad group on Facebook.
Why not?
What's
wrong with you?
No dad groups for me.
Jacob's weird. I'm in mom groups on like WhatsApp. It would be weird, I feel like, in my WhatsApp group if someone was like, I'm selling this, but if I cared about them and I wanted to actually help them and they were like a mom friend,
these are your direct neighbors though. You're not going to have like a business. Yeah. There's not going to be a business popping up in your mom's WhatsApp group.
Yeah, but I agree with Jacob. Like, you will never see me say like I'm selling speaking opportunities at like a discounted rate because of the blah 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 and like buy from me. Like, I would never post something like that. I think that's obnoxious, and it always, man, I get a lot of that.
It's not to say that I haven't tried.
Yeah, we've all tried in the beginning and it doesn't work.
I try everything, and still occasionally, every couple of months, maybe I'll throw up a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, my new course is out. And, sometimes I do it just to test the waters, but very rarely does any direct selling through social media, at least in my experience, work.
Yeah, for me, all of my customers come in through, I found your content, I found your article, or they Google me.
Create something useful and valuable.
It's actually very rarely me proactively selling. I mean, it's a unique business speaking. So if you have like a car dealership or something, it's different. But
yeah, I mean, if you're saying like, hey, here's like 50% off of a Mercedes, maybe that's something like that'll work on social media for specific products. One thing I wanted to also mention around acquiring customers, I wanted to share.
Facebook ads are more expensive than other platforms. Do you want to address that now or wait?
Yeah, in a minute.
Okay.
So one of the things I also wanted to share, and this is something my brother does, which has been pretty effective. He's a videographer and cinematographer. One cool technique that he's always used is he uses social channels and he reaches out to people and just says, hey, are you looking for a videographer? And he's actually gotten a lot of his clients, and he's worked with people like Patty Stanger. He's worked with people Mini-Me, Vern Troyer. He's worked with some famous bodybuilders and celebrity athletes. And the way that he gets some of his business is he would reach out to these people directly on Instagram and say, hey, I checked out your channel. I love your videos. Do you need somebody to make awesome videos for you? And he follows up with them, constantly until he gets a response. But they see his channel and they see that he's done a lot of interesting work. He's got good quality content, and he's actually been able to get a lot of business like that. So don't be scared to leverage things like LinkedIn or social channels in a tasteful way to reach out to people, not to spam. What was the other question you got?
I think we need to wrap, but it was just about pricing on ads. Facebook ads more expensive. I actually don't know because I really don't use advertising on social media.
I've tried advertising on every platform you can think of. I've had zero success with ads on Twitter. I found that ads on LinkedIn were astronomically expensive. Facebook ads are really the only ones that I am using on an ongoing and a regular basis to reach out to people. So yeah, I would say Facebook ads, give those a shot, see how it goes.
I think that's it.
All right. So just to recap, 8 ways to acquire a customer in 2020. Find third parties where your customers go. Speak at industry related events. Advertising on related channels. Content marketing, aka social media. Create free products and a newsletter. Leverage your existing network. Thought leadership, and develop support such as endorsements and testimonials. So that's it for us. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the BYOB podcast. If you want more content like this, go to byobpodcast.com. Anything else you want to say, Blake?
You got to try different things. You're not just going to open your business and have like huge success right away. So you got to be more like a lab than a factory, right, Jacob?
That's right. I know where she got that quote. That comes from yours truly. So hope you found this episode useful. These are 8 things that Blake and I have both done in our respective businesses that we have found to be useful and helpful. So hopefully you will find them useful and effective as well. All right, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. For those of you who are watching live and those of you listening to the audio version, we will see you all next week.